Yeah. And it's selfish not to have boundaries because, especially at the beginning of doing this, as hard as it may seem to hold a boundary with someone, especially someone that isn't used to you holding a boundary because it's a new muscle. And sometimes people will over rotate when they're trying to do this because they've given away their power for so long. Right. And now it's like they're finally coming into that. So that is a process. That's, not just because the tendency is to want to overcorrect here and bite someone's head off because now you've made it clear. Right. There's a sacred third, we call it, where it's like that thing that emerges from those wounds that is the clear new definition of whatever it is. In this case, your boundaries. All right. Welcome to another episode of the Ignite the King podcast. This is Michael Diamond.
And Russell Reynolds. Russell Reynolds to be official, but just Russell is fine.
And today we are going to take a deep dive in how men deal with burnout and dealing with burnout and why this is such a key thing to overcome in a man's growth and self-growth journey. Yeah. This is something we see a lot of, isn't it, Russell?
Yeah, I was going to say specifically how men can more effectively deal with burnout. We know how men deal with it out there. Usually it's numbing out, whether that's through drugs, alcohol, distraction, Netflix, you name it. That's not what we're recommending. We're recommending a more effective pathway.
Absolutely. And to live a life that you don't feel burnt out, right? And to say all that, all of us, both of us included, feel overwhelmed at times and feel like we want to just say fuck it and give up and throw the towel in. And those are normal feelings. It's how we deal with our feelings essentially that determine what the ongoing process is, right?
Yeah. And before we address any of that, Michael Diamond, how are you?
I'm good. I'm a little overwhelmed. Put this episode in time. We have an immersion coming up this week. So this is that time where all the dominoes are falling before the men come and arrive. So as you know, a lot of little details, a lot of logistics, a lot of family and all those beautiful things. Yes, deep breath. Yeah. But I feel good. I feel strong. And a lot of that's because I am disciplined about taking care of myself and my bioenergy, which I imagine we're going to talk about today, of how to deal effectively with not getting burnout. Mm-hmm. How are you?
Thank you for asking. I'm good, man. Yeah, I'm feeling strong. Started my day with cardio and MDS and a little mobility, self-care again, which is an important thing.
Can you share with the listeners what MDS is? Because I don't know that many men know.
MDS stands for Mastro Defense System, which is the system of self-defense and close quarters combatives that I teach, founded by Fred Mastro, who is based out of Belgium. So not a lot of people over here have heard of him or heard of MDS, but it is growing in the U.S. rapidly. The reference I usually give people is if you ever saw the movie Taken with Liam Neeson, Fred is one of the ones who taught Liam for that film. So the hand-to-hand you see him doing that film is what we do. Fred has trained special forces units, counterterrorism units, Homeland Security, SWAT police, bodyguards all over the world. So it's super, super effective. But what I love about it the most is it's based in biomechanics and science, not strength and athleticism. So it's not just meant for elite military operators or, athletically gifted MMA fighters. It's applicable for everyone. So a woman half my size could defend herself effectively against an attacker my size.
Kind of like the Ignite work, right? It's applicable for everyone. You don't have to be some self-help guru or some person that's on the personal growth path for years to know how to do it. It's meant to be for the everyday man, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's about MDS, and I'll give more information on that in the future. But one of the things I want to share, we're talking about burnout, is that little thing that I just did, which seemed like is like, oh wait, let's take this little exit ramp. Asking Michael, how are you? No, that was an important part of how we deal with burnout.
I saw what you did there.
Yeah, I know you did. I don't know if anybody else
take me there. Take me there.
Yeah, because how many of us men take time to just feel, to actually stop the rat race, stop the running around, just take a moment, be present, do a mental and emotional inventory. And a lot of times out there, we know people go, hey, how are you? Like, I'm fine. That's the energy neutral answer. And a lot of times people ask the question and they don't really want the answer. If you say anything more than fine, they're like, oh my God, why is he talking? But to be genuinely present and interested in that other person, go, hey man, how are you? And if they give you the curt answer of fine, or yeah, I'm good, which Michael started with that. He goes, I'm good. But then he expanded. He actually checked in and expanded. If somebody gives you that curt answer, just be like, no, hey man, how are you really? What's going on? And people aren't used to people giving a shit.
Right.
So when you
it does require vulnerability, right?
It does.
Kind of that self-reflection of like, hey, you know what? To jump in for a second, something I've always remind myself of when I see people in public, whether they're acting a certain way or not, I always just try to tune into their energy and like, man, I have no idea what that person's dealing with right now.
Right.
I have no, and we hear it in the context of when people are acting like crazy or weird in out in the public,
right.
And everyone like just kind of judges them, and it's like, well, you just don't really know what they're really going. Like the waitress that's not happy, it shows up in so many places, right? But it's like, what is that person really? If I knew, I'd be like grateful for my problems, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, man, that guy's an asshole. Well, his wife left him, his mom died, and he just got fired. Like,
right.
You have no idea what's going on for that guy.
Right.
So, we maintain our boundaries, we maintain our standards, we maintain our sovereignty. We don't just become a doormat for anybody who's acting like an asshole, but we can also view that person with a higher sense of knowing and perhaps a little compassion.
Yeah. And I think this just becomes the mirror because we're talking about how men deal with burnout. So, not everyone may act this way with you. Russell is a highly aware individual to see like, oh, let me ask him a question to help check in deeper, which can help change his physiology and not feel burnt out or overwhelmed. Right. But you may be the one that feels the burnout or overwhelmed, not just seeing it in others. Right. So you gotta, the whole point of this particular episode is to recognize that, hey man, I'm feeling this way. So how do I, in a sense, move that energy or in a place where people are actually asking me truly what's going on, or I have a place to share that, because a lot of people don't have someone asking them that in a really sincere way that want to know what's going on with them. Right. Which is why we created the podcast, which is why we are going to give some actionables at the end of this episode to teach you how to navigate not feeling burnout and to have actually be in an energy rich state.
Yeah, and just to circle back a little bit, when you said it does require a level of vulnerability for somebody to be honest with the answer, and people may not feel safe giving you that level of vulnerability. So give what you're asking for. So I've found that if somebody doesn't feel comfortable even being vulnerable with me, I'll go there first. Like, yeah, I was just asking how you are, man, because my heart's been hurting a lot lately. I got this and this going on, and sometimes it's a struggle to get through the day. So I just wanted to check on you. And boom, now the door opens.
Absolutely, it's a beautiful way to create some rapport, right?
Yeah.
I think at a base level, when we're feeling overwhelmed or burnout, I know for me, those are the times when I'm short with people. Those are the times where I don't want to deal with people, all that kind of stuff. So I always try to come back to give the thing that I really need. So if I'm needing that kind of support, give it. If I'm needing someone to be kind, be kind. I read a quote from Aldous Huxley recently. I'd never heard, we know his work well in a sense. And I saw this quote. He said, it said, after all my years of research, I'm embarrassed to say that the best advice I can give is for everyone just to be a little kinder to each other. I was like, wow. So we're not saying this in a small way. It's actually the crux of everything as far as how we heal and be in community and in this renaissance that we're seeing go on is, in spite of all the craziness we see and what's going on in the world, ultimately this, in my view, is reorganizing to a much more beautiful world. We're just seeing the exposing, whatever you want to call it, all the shadows and the darkness, which again is why we're doing this work, because we're part of that alchemy.
Yeah. So why do men experience burnout? From a 30,000 foot view, I would say the biggest culprits are lack of purpose and lack of passion in what they're doing. There's also the stub your toe domino effect that I know personally. I'll get into a state of maybe not burnout, but that you know being an asshole or being short with people when there's that one thing that set me off that didn't sit right with me and I didn't address it but pushed it to the side, which led to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. And then it becomes this cascade or domino effect of stuff going wrong.
Or so it seems.
Or so it seems, right?
Because we often say it's not about the circumstance. And often we'll hear men say, yeah, but this thing happened to me and I can't control this. And, and it's like, okay, you're right. And so kind of bringing us back into but I hear you, that domino effect, it can, what is it, Murphy's Law, whatever can and will go wrong or something like that. So
now, Murphy,
that's where
that
it's
guy's
like
an asshole.
yeah, fuck it. But you have to have like a way to pattern interrupt, right? And I think this will get maybe more in the actions, but a lot of it's just awareness, like you're in that mode. We reference this as far as one of the pains of men, Groundhog's Day, where burnout cannot. I think classically think of it as like I'm burnt out, like I've been burning the candle at both ends. I got no energy left. But it could also be showing burnout where it's like you're in this neutral state where you've been in that Groundhog's Day, living the same life, where it's like there's just, you're stuck in this little window of energy that you can't break out of, right?
Right.
Where it's like just good enough where you're not going to change and it's not bad enough yet. So
that's a horrible place.
It's the most challenging, that's for sure.
Yeah. And if we go with the concept that everything in the universe is either contracting or expanding, that burnout is a continual contraction, right? Your energy shrinking and you're shrinking in. And it's really challenging because you feel like you're putting out so much, you're giving off so much energy, but your state is contracting. That's burnout, where you finally just end up in this, psycho-emotional fetal position, this energetic fetal position where you're just like, fuck it all, right? So it's like, how do we address this before we get to that state? How can you put yourself in a state of expansion? And that angst is definitely contraction. When you said something about, but this thing is happening to me, it's like, yeah, that's true. If we can put ourselves in the mindset and, to give credit where it's due, I think Tony Robbins, who I first heard this from, I don't know, but everything in my life is happening for me, not to me.
That's been a game changer, by the way.
If we take that philosophy, if we take on that belief system, everything in my life is happening for me, not to me. I'll give an example. Just yesterday, day before, we're eating, and do you ever bite your tongue while you're chewing?
Happened to Nani Leia last night, actually.
It happened to me just the other, and I took a effing chunk out of my tongue. I bet. I mean, I don't want to show the cameras, but I took a chunk, and I was like, it was just that immediate. It's one of those pains that just brings on immediate rage, and I felt that, and I took a deep breath, and I chose to be present to it and ask what it was showing me. And what I realized is I began inhaling my meal without gratitude, without prayer, without thanks, without presence. That's why I bit my tongue. I wasn't even present to what I was doing.
Right.
My mind was in 100 different places. That's the kind of thing that could lead to burnout.
Yeah.
But because I chose to address it from a place of this is happening for me, not to me.
Well, it was definitely a pattern interrupt, wasn't it?
It sure was. But that allowed me to put down my fork and stop and give thanks and be present.
Yeah.
And it made the rest of the meal so much richer.
Russell shared a video in our private thread for our brotherhood the other day. It was a Christmas commercial where a man wakes up and he's wrapped in a Christmas present and basically goes through his day everything is the biggest gift. Like he had shoes, he had running water, he had lights that went on, he had breakfast, and everything was wrapped in the Christmas presents. And I showed my
Christmas
family,
baby,
and
yeah.
we all got a kick out of it. And it was like, he's like, I have a car, and he's like, and then his wife hands him a cup of coffee, it was so great. And I consciously took energy from that video and implemented that right away. And it's just, it was funny how like contagious it was in myself. And just bringing back the novelty, I think really helps combat this burnout where we have the same patterns, right? We go to the same maybe jobs and have the same relationships and families and routes to work and grocery stores and just the daily life stuff. And it seems like that can become so primary that we forget that to have those individual, profound personal moments.
And when we take any of those things for granted, especially the relationship, gentlemen.
Yes.
That's
a big
one.
one.
Going to go well.
Yeah, don't get burnt out in a relationship. You got, Russell has a longtime girlfriend, 10 years plus, right?
Yeah.
I've been married for almost 11 now, and together with my wife for over 20. And you got to keep it. You got to keep it novel. Let's just say that, and not get burnt out in the relationship. A couple of things I want to comment on here about burnout, because I think of think of fire. And I think for a lot of men out there, and I was definitely one of them for a while, where I got burnt out because I was constantly putting out fires, right? And I got torched by a lot of those fires and living life just literally putting out fires and never getting ahead. And I know there's a lot of men that could probably relate to that feeling where it's just a to-do list every single day. And no matter how much gets done, there's another to-do list. And it could feel like working so hard, but not feeling the progress. Truthfully, I use the Franklin Covey system and have for 20 years. And that's been my biggest help in not going into fire extinguishing mode. Prioritizing correctly and planning correctly and keeping things in quadrant 2, as they call it, right? Urgent, but important, but not urgent versus urgent, important. And if you're in burnout, everything's important and everything is urgent, right? And this is where men awareness and taking stock in your life. If we say that and you're like, that's my life, then it's time for a gut check. And because that's not sustainable, and that leads to poor health. That leads, the ravages of aging, the mind. You name it. Just the amount of chronic illness out there as a result to this kind of lifestyle. People just get burnt out, and their body shuts down. We're not meant to sustain stress physiology in a chronic state. It's just humans were not designed that way.
Yep.
And that's a whole deep dive we can go in, but I'm going to pause myself there.
Yeah.
But important to get the effects, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And if everybody else's emergencies are becoming your priority, that's a fast track to burnout.
Yeah.
Right. And what's that saying? Like, your lack of preparation doesn't make it my emergency, or doesn't make it my priority.
Something like that.
It's like, and this is where sovereignty and standards and boundaries come in.
I was going to say,
talk about. Yeah.
Let's give a little overview of that, because I think this is important for men to get like, okay, yeah, let's jump in on this. I was going to say, there's definitely a piece I want to make sure we bring in, because this is a place we have found that most men in particular have not defined. They think they have. They let people cross over their boundaries, but not in an effective way. So standards and boundaries, basically your standards are your floors. It's what you stand on, and it's the minimum of what you'll accept. Your boundaries are your walls. That's what you allow in. That's what you say yes to. That's what you say no to. And often we find that men don't define their boundaries, don't communicate boundaries, and don't hold their boundaries. And
let me jump in right there, because let's go back to the standards. Most men haven't clearly defined their standards, and their standards in different areas. Some of you may have a financial standard, like, I won't accept any less money than this in my bank account, or that I'm getting paid annually. Great. What about your health standard? Because if your health and your body look like shit,
doesn't matter how much money
you have in the bank account. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So where's your health standard? Where's your relationship standard? Where's your family standard? You're busting your ass at work, 40, 50, 60 hours a week,
80.
80 hours a week. Yeah. And your family is longing for your presence.
Right.
Your children are longing for their father. Your standards are all amiss. So clearly define your standards. Like that's the minimum. Right.
Yeah.
And we've heard fathers talk about it. You've been so good about it with your son that when you come home from work or at the end of the day or whatever, it doesn't matter how tired you are. Your dad, gave this to you, Michael.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter how tired you are. If he says, I want to go throw the baseball, you're going to go throw the baseball. That's a standard of fatherhood.
I've tried to get out of it, by the way, but he holds the standard with me. That's for sure. He'll say that your dad said. I'm like, yep.
That's the problem with having an awakened child.
Right? I love it.
You teach him all the stuff he's going to use it against you.
Oh, yeah.
That's beautiful.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, right?
My good one.
God, got me up. Yeah, so standards, man, clearly. And now boundaries as well. And
this is huge.
You know what's coming to my mind right now? Office space. Yeah, I'm gonna need you to go ahead and come in on the weekend. That'd be swell. That'd be great. If you could just go ahead and finish all of these reports for me by tomorrow, that'd be great. That office manager who would cross everybody's boundaries. It became his mission to see how many boundaries he could cross.
Exactly.
And every time you give up those boundaries, your sovereignty is lost.
Yep.
Right?
Kind of how totalitarianism happens too, doesn't it? Just keep pushing inch by inch.
Yeah. Huh. Isn't that weird? Just keep turning up the heat in the pot till the frog boils.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anywho. If I could just add a little more on the boundaries piece, I think this is such an important thing because, how we've seen it show up for men in a not sacred way is because you all have standards or boundaries. The problem is we don't communicate them. So someone will violate one of our boundaries and we will react and we will fucking bring out the fangs on them. And they're like, whoa, what happened? Right?
Now, Michael, are you suggesting there's a possibility that somebody could cross or violate a boundary that we've never verbalized or expressed?
It's possible. So in that rare case
and then we rip their heads
happens, right? Because we do have boundaries.
Yeah.
We just need to take the time to define them, especially in relationship, especially with family, especially with roles at work or business. As someone has owned their own businesses for a long time, it was so easy, especially at the beginning, to just try to help everyone and make everything happen and, violate my own boundaries and then get upset that it was being taken advantage of.
Oh, you said something there. Violate my own boundaries. What if the person violating your boundaries is you? What if you set boundaries, but then told yourself you don't deserve to have boundaries because you've got to make this other thing outside of you more important than any of your personal boundaries?
Absolutely.
Could that be a recipe for burnout?
Yeah. And that stems from one of the core wounds all men face, all humans, I believe, face, which is I'm not good enough and I'm not worthy. And everything, if it's coming from that wound, will lead a person, a human, a man to burnout because nothing they ever do is going to be good enough in their own mind or in their perception of others.
And a lot of us have been conditioned to believe that having boundaries is selfish.
Right. Absolutely.
No, it's self-preservation.
Yeah, and it's selfish not to have boundaries because, as especially at the beginning of doing this, as hard as it may seem to hold a boundary with someone, especially someone that isn't used to you holding a boundary, because it's a new muscle. And sometimes people will over-rotate when they're trying to do this because they've given away their power for so long. Right. And now it's like they're finally coming into that. So that is a process. That's, not just because the tendency is to want to overcorrect here and bite someone's head off because now you've made it clear. Right. There's a sacred third, we call it, where it's like that thing that emerges from those wounds that is the clear new definition of whatever it is. In this case, your boundaries.
Right. By the way, convincing people that having boundaries, personal, assets or accomplishments is selfish is also one of the main tenets of socialism. But let's move on, shall we? No boundaries for you.
Right. It's like, well, just to use the model of socialism, that everything's the same, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens is then people don't want to go for anything above and beyond because the reward isn't there, right?
Mhm.
That's the beautiful thing about personal growth is that you put energy into the system, it's going to come back to you, 100-fold, right? The whole point is to ethically and efficiently add energy to the system, your system, the field around you, the field of your family, the field of your relationship, the field of your work. Because as you put energy into that system, you're fed by it. And then, kind of a key antidote to this burnout thing is passion, right? Because if you're working really hard for something that you're passionate about, is very different. We call that, being on a mission versus working really hard for something you're not passionate about. We call that stress, right? You're still working hard. So, we have many examples in our group of men, most of the men, thankfully, that work really hard at the thing that they're doing. And it's because they're building an empire for themselves. They're building their brand. They're building their business. They're building their relationship, their family, right? Yeah, you got
I'm actually
a shirt on one of the men right now. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Josue Navarro, Renovated Aesthetics. Check out renovatedaesthetics.com. He is beyond a barber. He is a hair guru. I mean, if you could combine the highest points of hairstyling with the highest points of personal developments. Like imagine Tony Robbins cutting your hair. It's kind of what Sway brings to the table. He's got a vision beyond just style.
That's just his medium,
personal
right?
confidence. Yeah, this is his medium to pour into people, and he's his brick and mortar is based in Amarillo, Texas, but he is expanding. Online digital.
Well, he takes care of NBA players. He had a part of a salon in LA for many years. Was super successful. Now he's back in his hometown that he grew up in, but his mission is to bring the renovated brand and lifestyle to where he came from. How many of you out there are going back? I'm not going back to where I grew up to go transform the consciousness of that town. I tell you what, like I'm good. I always say I grew up in the suburbs of New York. I'm like, it's a great place to be from. I'm not going back there. But the fact that he's going back there and now he's raising 3 young kings, 3 boys and bringing them up in the legacy of what he's creating, and through the medium of barbering and lifting up others. Because barbering, through him learning that it's a career that people can go into to lift themselves up into the culture and beyond the culture, socioeconomically, that maybe didn't have opportunity for education in certain ways. And he's helping to usher that program in for people, that pathway to take, right? Where he's showing them how to do it.
Yeah. Do you remember that videos? I think it was like a little short film, this black and white video about the parking validation.
Sure.
Where
I need to get validated.
Parking lot attendant. And these people are coming in all sad sacks and ho hum throughout their energy neutral day, and they hand him the tickets. Like, I'm here to get validated. He's like, man, you have beautiful eyes, and that tie. Where did you get that? Is that important? That looks amazing. And just
you think so?
Boom, 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 boom.
Right.
Blast these people with validation and self worth, and all of a sudden he's like, running
he's
the
like
company.
With the president, right?
Yeah, it's crazy, crazy, amazing stuff. And that's the energy Sway brings to barbering. It's about uplifting and rebuilding people, and with confidence and with aesthetics and all of this stuff. So it's a beautiful thing. We just as we were, since I'm wearing this shirt for Renovated Aesthetics, I'm repping Sway today. It's just perfect that we were talking about how not to get burnout. It's that passion for what you do. Do you feel in
and
the
again,
morning?
This is a man that has 3 kids under 3. Yeah. 2 of them are
Grizzly
newborns,
just
essentially.
Turned 3.
Just turned 3.
One just turned 3 years old, and 2 that are less than a year old.
So you talk about the circumstances to be burnout, and this man is living an inspired mission and wakes up with more gratitude and frankly gets more done in a day than I've seen anyone get done. And he tracks and has the metrics for every action he takes in a day. It is beyond incredible. So I just want to make sure we didn't go past that point. And one last piece I'll say on the Barber thing, and then say your point here. For men, and because I've talked to my barber about this, I've been seeing the same barber for 3.5 years here in Austin, and he said, it's one of the few times that men will give themselves a little time to sit because they have to, right? You have to, like, you have someone's sharp blade to your head.
It's like,
you have to be you can relax, but you can't move. And it's actually a ritual that I quite enjoy. But these are those moments that need to be more plentiful than just, the regular haircut, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, just wanted to make sure to mention that. Go back to what you were talking about here.
Man, here's an easy metric since we're talking about keeping metrics to determine if you're in a state or on a path to burnout or not. When you wake up in the morning, do you have to wake up to go to work, or do you get to wake up to go do what you love?
Yep.
That's a huge difference. That's the difference between passion and purpose, or just on the hamster wheel of life, Groundhog's Day, one of the 5 pains of men, over and over again. And if you can't, if it's, I have to wake up to go do this thing that I don't enjoy doing, maybe work on changing that. But if you can't change it in the moment, right now, this is the job that you're in, this is the situation you're in, change your perspective.
Yeah.
What can you find to be grateful for?
I can share a quick story on that. That changing your perspective thing hit me last week. So a little bit about my life. And Russell and I have mentioned, I have a son, an almost 9-year-old son, and one of his biggest passions is baseball. And for the last 2 seasons, I've been the assistant coach. And he is now moving into what's called All-Stars, which is a higher level. It's a 1-month season essentially. And it's this whole thing where there's a nomination and a vote, and all the teams have to be part of this voting. And part of that was we had to go and scout every kid that was trying out at their games and take notes and get signed off by the coaches that we were there watching their kids that they nominated, and then go do this vote. And at first I was pretty upset about it. I'm like, I can't believe I have to go and watch these games that I'm not coaching, that my son isn't in, to observe these kids, to give up my entire Saturday to go do this. Right. And then I had this moment where I was like, no, I get to go do this. And I went, and I actually really enjoyed it because, one, I wasn't coaching, so I wasn't like screaming my head off. And two, my kid wasn't out there, so I wasn't nervous about who was going to win. I got to just like enjoy the game and take notes. And I'm like, I appreciated that they go to this level to really scout these kids, and then 5 hours at this room in a restaurant to vote. And it took 5 hours. And I could have been like, like, I'm giving up my Tuesday night, blah, 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 all this. And I was like, this is really cool. And I appreciate the standard, to bring it in, that they held, that like, no, we're going to put out the best team, 5 teams on the top all the way down. And each kid has to get 75% of the vote to make a certain, so it's all these standards they were holding. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, I appreciate a high standard, and it totally changed my perspective on what I thought I had to do. And now I'm like excited. And now I'm going to be another, by the way, Russell, assistant coach on the team that Wolfie got on. So my coaching career continues. But it was, now I'm like energized by it as opposed to burnout by it. That was the point I wanted to make.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And another perspective is legacy. Right? I mean, you're seeding legacy right there. Because I can certainly remember coaches that told me I wasn't good enough, that told me I sucked at the sport, or a teacher that told me that I was dumb. And math teachers, like, I'm dumb. And I grew up my entire life believing I'm dumb at math because that teacher said that.
How many of you men out there can relate to things like that?
Right. Here you have an opportunity to plant these seeds of self-worth and self-belief and empowerment in these young minds, through the medium of baseball, that's awesome. What a beautiful way to spend your Tuesday night, right? Like that shifts everything, because now you get to be passionate about what you do. That's beautiful, man.
Yeah. And one of the things I love is that we sponsored the team this last season. So Ignite the King has been living on the back of these boys' jerseys. We talk about subconscious imprinting, like literally on their backs, it has said Ignite the King. It's been really cool. By the way, we ended up 15-3. We had a really killer season.
Nice.
So
nice.
It's working.
Yeah. Yeah. We tried to, Ignite the King's on the back of the jersey. We tried to, facilitate the equipment too, but the medieval battle mace instead of the baseball bat was not
It's putting
very
holes
popular.
in the ball.
Yeah. The ball kept getting stuck on the end of the mace. It wasn't working out. So
that's great. We're sort of getting toward the end here, and I think it'd be good to shift in a little bit of like, okay, I think men can resonate with being burnout, what causes burnout, how it's been showing up, and the consequence of it, right? So let's get a little more now into, and we've been weaving it in, but the actionables and ways that men can, they have the awareness, right? Like, okay, I'm getting burnout. I've been doing the same thing, all that. Like, what the fuck do I do about it? Like, how do I shift gears now? What would you offer for that?
There's one more piece that I want to share about the potential burnout potential cause for burnout. It's not just the going through the motion, because we talk about passion, we talk about purpose, right? Why are you doing what you do? And men lose sight of that. I think men lose sight of that often. It's like, I'm just going through the motions. I'm just working and grinding. Why? Do you have a family? Okay, so your mission is your family. You're going to support them. Yeah. And not just for you to be connected to that why, but for it to be recognized, because that's a huge piece. If you're busting your ass every day of the week or 5 days a week, and your family's not even recognizing that or acknowledging you for it, saying, "Hey, who is the comedian?" It's like
Chris Rock.
Yeah, Chris Rock.
It's easy to read with all this light on.
Yeah, sure. Right. It's easy to read with all these lights on. Thanks for paying the bills, Dad. Thanks for the electricity.
Thanks for knocking out this rent.
Right. But a lot of times men are unacknowledged, unrecognized for that work that they do. That can definitely lead to burnout. Yeah. And that becomes a point of standards and boundaries where you have to be vulnerable enough to communicate the need. And all men have this need to be recognized. All men have this need to be validated. And if you want to go, I don't need anybody. Yeah. Right. And if you want to go, I don't need anybody. I don't need any validation. Oh, that lone wolf thing that's working out for you. Is it really? Really? Really?
Yeah.
No.
I would also challenge further and say a man needs to lead his family and to hold that kingdom where it is felt and known that he is doing that. So I think it's a yes and here.
Yeah. And that you referenced that Christmas gift video where the guy wakes up and he's in wrapping paper and he's alive. That's his first gift. And he has a bed. That's his second gift. He has shoes. He has lights. He has breakfast. How much do you think it would mean to that man if his family recognized those gifts and said, "Hey, we have food. Thank you. We have electricity. Thank you.
Yeah.
We have a roof over our head. Thank you for doing what you do. Have a great day at work, honey." That guy's going to go into work supercharged to crush the day.
Gotta have mission, men. I mean, it's the bottom line. I think this is a theme we're going to repeat often on this podcast, because a man without a mission is a man that's lost. And a man that's lost is a man that's dead. He has no energy.
Sure.
And that's the pattern. And again, like, some of that is your stuff, and some of that like is like an agenda that's being pushed on you. And without opening up that can of worms too far, it's important to recognize that the culture is not set up for you to thrive in, right?
No.
It's meant to keep you neutral.
It's meant to keep you as a worker bee, as a drone.
Yeah. And so, everything has been conditioned. So much of the self-growth work is literally pulling off the conditioning, pulling off the leeches, as we like to say, of that conditioning, of those masks, those shadows, the stories, the beliefs, the patterns, all that stuff, and recognize what the game really is. And you being energy rich kind of makes you, just as an awareness, a tall poppy that other people want to cut down. Because if other people aren't feeling empowered, they're going to want to bring you down with them. And misery loves company, as they say, right?
Yeah. So how do you protect yourself against that? Standards and boundaries?
Standards and boundaries. And energy state is number one I would offer, and your bioenergy and how you take care of yourself, whether it's through training. We talked before this episode just about you're coming out for the immersion. We're already coordinating your workouts and when I'm working out and making sure that like we're both taken care of in the way that we need, because to be our best, like that's a standard we hold for ourselves, right?
Man, and absolutely. And the most underprescribed antidepressant and anti-anxiety medication on the planet is exercise.
Right.
Scientifically proven. It's exercise. You're literally changing your brain chemistry as well as your body composition.
And what's the most overused antidepressant?
Probably the
Food?
cell phone, social media, food.
Yeah.
Even more than alcohol. It used to be alcohol and cigarettes, but now it's become social media and food, right? Yeah. And that's also by design. Again, society is set up. I want to talk about the powers that be. Or
let me ask you
like
a question, Russell, because I know we both will scroll Instagram. We're guilty, just like a lot of people on occasion, right? So, do you feel more energized after doing that? I know I don't.
Never.
Right. And I could see, there are those moments, I'm sure many men can relate, where I'm like, I got to stop scrolling. Why am I doing this? And I'm still flicking my finger up. And until I have that moment where it's just like, just put it down.
Right.
Right. So it's go ahead. But the bioenergy piece is huge.
Absolutely. So guys, you got to be exercised. You got to, if you're not doing it